Good evening, everyone. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of can't even speak. Ask Leah. The great news is I do have my voice back this week. It is still a little bit scratchy, but after 2 weeks in which I lost my voice twice, it is great to have a bit of a voice back again. And it's a good thing I do, because I've got 3 questions to go through tonight. Well, really 2 questions and one thing that I really want to talk about. And the thing I really want to talk about is the role of active bystanders. So I'm actually going to talk about that first, and then I'll jump into the questions tonight. So yesterday, I was driving through Newborough on my way to a meeting, and I was driving along and I looked up to the side and noticed an elderly man on the footpath, laying down on the footpath, kind of struggling to get up, and he had a dog on a lead that was kind of running around beside him. And straight away you could see this guy was in trouble, and there was 4 cars in front of me, and every single one of them drove past. And I pulled in straight to the curb, jumped out of the car, ran over to him, spoke to him, established that he'd taken a fair tumble. He, had bruised and bloodied his shoulder and his hand. His neighbours then came out. I was with him holding his hand and reassuring him. His neighbours came out. We, sort of tried to see if he was right to get up, but it was quite clear that he wasn't. So the neighbours called an ambulance. In this time, a lot of other cars went past, but one more did stop and come in to help, and we got the man in the recovery position, and the ambulance was on its way. And in that time, we had a chat with him, we had a joke, and really reassured him that everything was going to be okay. I don't share this story because I think I did something remarkable. I think I did what I would like to think most people would do. I suppose what shocked me was how many cars drove past. And it probably shouldn't have shocked me, because there have been multiple times, even just in recent weeks, where I've seen this kind of situation play out, where something's gone on and people have turned a blind eye, whether that's to think, I don't want to get involved. Are they really in trouble? Maybe they're just drunk and fallen down, or they're on drugs or whatever. Not that that's a reason to not help, but that's a whole other story. One of the other cases I had recently was when I had my kids with me. We were at a shopping centre, local shopping centre, and as we were walking into the shopping centre, there was a man in the car park absolutely speaking to his female partner appallingly and really, cracking at her. And it was horrible. And, people were doing what people do and, shaking their heads and, sort of rolling their eyes or just averting their eyes and walking past and then whispering to each other. And I walked into the shopping centre with the 3 boys, and I stopped, and, they were like, why have we stopped, Mum? And I thought, I don't want to go out there and make the situation worse. And I will speak in a sec about how we can be active bystanders. But I saw that the woman was coming into the shopping centre. So I just stopped and waited with the boys, and I waited for her to come in. And then as she sort of walked in and looked around, I just quietly sort of moved over to be beside her, and I just said to her, are you okay? And she stopped and looked at me and she said, yeah, I am. She did what lots of people do and justified, look, he just is having a bad day and whatever. That was fine. My role wasn't to interject. It's not to pass judgment on this woman. I just said, are you okay? And she said, no, I'm fine, he's having bad whatever. But then she looked me in the eye and she said, but thank you so much for caring enough to stop and ask me that question. I worry sometimes about how many people are so quick to get caught up in their own world, whether it is to think that it's not my problem, or that, I shouldn't get involved, I shouldn't stick my nose in, whatever it is. And I'm here to talk tonight briefly before I get into the questions about the role of an active bystander and what that means, because I think sometimes people think there's only the two extremes. You either don't do anything or you get in there and do something, and there's more nuance than that to being an active bystander. So what is it? Well, a bystander in itself is someone who sees something happen. So you see, whether it's a conflict or unacceptable behaviour or someone in trouble, a bystander is someone who sees it. An active bystander is someone who then takes action to do something about it. And that action is to ensure that everyone's safe, that everyone's okay with the situation. It's not necessarily to stop the situation, but it's to see if people are safe and people are okay. So to be an active bystander, first and foremost, you need to see that we are all connected and understand that you can be part of the solution. There is that old cliche, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. If I suddenly took ill and fell down on a sidewalk or a footpath, I would hope that someone would check that I was okay and not just assume that I'd had too many wines over lunch and just fallen down. And even if I bloody had too many wines over lunch, I would still hope that someone would help me to my feet. And it really was quite distressing, the number of cars that were in front of me yesterday that drove past this man. And look, some of them may not have seen him. I get that. But I can guarantee at least some of those cars would have seen this guy and not stopped and helped. So what can we do when we see something? The important thing, first and foremost, is you do have to stay safe yourself. You know, there are unfortunately cases of people, I suppose, they're doing it for the right reasons, but you can jump in and try to be a hero and cause more damage. You may put yourself in an unsafe situation yourself, or maybe you make it worse for the victim on the receiving end by sticking your nose in and intervening. That doesn't mean you don't take action. It just means that the action might not be that direct one. So there's really three main approaches that you can take to be an active bystander. The first one is that direct approach. It is pulling straight over to the curb, jumping out and checking if that guy was okay. And I am so glad that I did. He was a really sweet elderly man. He just said his legs gave out from under him. He has emphysema. He's actually booked in to have surgery on his legs tomorrow because he's been having issues with them. And he was out walking his dog. He probably went a bit further than he should have, and his legs just gave way and he hit the ground. He was a lovely man, and he was so grateful that people had stopped to help him. Hi to those who have joined. So there is that direct approach where you call something out or you intervene, you help, you physically do that. However, there's a couple of other options. The second option is to delegate it. If you don't feel safe, it might be that you're at a nightclub or you're out for dinner somewhere or you're in a shopping centre and there's security guards, and maybe you're not going to intervene or do something yourself, but you're going to let someone know what's going on. You might walk up to the security guard and say, hey, look, I just witnessed this is going on, can you do something? You might ring the police if you hear a domestic violence situation happening. Rather than thinking, oh, I won't get involved, maybe you ring the police. They don't tell them that it was you that rang. So you can delegate that involvement. And the third one is distract or interrupt. So you might not get involved or call something out, overtly, but just like we spoke about the other week when we were talking about how to call out casual racism, and, if you're not feeling confident enough to do that, it might be something as simple as pretending you know the person and saying, oh, hi, how's it going, and starting a conversation to distract from whatever the thing is that's going on. Or maybe you go and sit next to someone who is being given a hard time on a train, and you're not intervening, but you're showing support that way. So there are options, but I implore you, we are all human. We are all connected. We are all people, okay? If you see something, please reach out. Please be part of the solution. Please be the person who stops and helps someone who, you know, it might be the mum at the supermarket who's struggling with her bags. Do you want me to carry something for you? They might say no. And here's the kicker. Don't get offended. If people do tell you to get back in your box, it's not about you know, seeing yourself as a martyr or a savior. It's just offering. It's just saying, would you like a hand, and showing people that you care. Because I can almost guarantee, even if that person says, no, I don't need help, they will be grateful that you offered. So please, active bystanders, people, we can do this. Now, let me get into the questions that we've been asked tonight. I've got 2 that came in, and the first one is a quick one. So let's tackle that first. In a workshop this week, and I actually get asked this question quite frequently, can soft skills really be taught? And of course, you know, I will say absolutely. Soft skills are like any skill. They can be taught, they can be learnt, they can be developed. But the follow-up question to that is often, but really, Leah, can they really? Because I know some people and they're rubbish communicators, or they've got a crap mindset. I don't think they can be taught. Here is my answer. Soft skills absolutely can be taught. Anyone can be taught to be a better communicator. But here's the kicker. Here's the caveat. If they are willing to learn, if they are open to learning. I cannot help anyone who is totally closed off to learning. If you sit in my workshop, if you sit in a coaching session, if you if you're saying you want to improve your performance, but then you sit there with your arms crossed and go, there's nothing wrong with me, you know, I'm fine, it's everyone else who's the problem, and you're not even willing to do some self-reflection, to have some self-awareness, then no, you won't ever improve your soft skills. It's like if you've ever been to a hypnotist show, you know, the hypnotists will say when they're calling people up onto the stage to say, you know, do you want to be hypnotized? They will always say, because you do, you get that element in the crowd who'll go, I bet you they can't hypnotize me. I think it's all a load of rubbish. I'll get up onto stage and show them. And the hypnotist will always say to the crowd, now, if that's you, don't come up on stage, because you are right. They cannot hypnotize you if you are closed to the process and not willing to do it. Okay, so yes, soft skills can be taught to anyone. Anyone can improve the way they communicate, but only if they're willing to learn. Give me 1 sec to have a drink because this scratchy throat is catching up on me. Hello, Kate. Hello, Jenny, Hannah, Rach, and Kaz. Okay, the last question that came through this afternoon, actually. It's a really good one. How do we deal with negative colleagues who are always negative? You know, there's always a problem. It's always the drama. They're in victim mode. You know, it's problem with their responsibilities or their work or whatever, but it's always glass is half empty, always a problem. And the reason this person is asking for some techniques on how to deal with it is because she said it's really at risk of bringing me down and it's having an impact on me. So let's give you some ideas on how we can cope with this. The first one is a tricky one, but you won't be surprised when I say it, and it's empathize. And by that, I don't mean giving a green light to negative people. When I say empathy, though, I'm saying put yourself in their shoes, see things from their perspective. You don't know. And, you know, I say that, but at the same time I say this, you don't know what's going on behind the closed doors of other people. You might be sitting there judging this really negative person. You don't know what's going on at home for them. They might be having a very, very tough time. They may have been raised this way with negativity. They, you know, they're probably, if they're so negative and down at work, they're probably in a pretty bad place, even if they're oblivious to that, because some people are very oblivious to their own negativity. They don't have that self-awareness. But they're not going to be in a great place if that's how they choose to live their life. And anyone who's been to one of my workshops and heard me talk about that victim orientation and how lots of people live their life in the dreaded drama triangle from a victim perspective, it is draining on those around them. But the empathy part of you will help you manage and cope with it, because it's almost saying to yourself, geez, I would hate to be in this position where everything was bad, because God, that'd be draining and drama, and it'd make work really suck. So as much as it isn't fun for me sitting next to them, imagine how much worse it would be if I was that person myself. Now, coming with that direct approach of saying, look, stop being negative, you've got to be positive, rah, rah, rah. That's not going to work, and it's probably just going to cause some issues. However, asking some clarifying questions sometimes can be helpful. You might say, ask some questions about, what is going on? Is there anything I can help with? Do you want to bounce around some ideas to make this a better situation? Is there a solution I can help you come up with? The reason I say that, and I will clarify to say why sometimes that isn't the best approach, but for some negative people, the reason they're on that repeat loop with their negativity is because they don't feel like they're being heard. And if someone doesn't feel like they're being heard or valued, they will tend to stick in a cycle of repeat because they just don't feel like they're getting through. Hi, Tanya. So, sorry about the cough. So, empathize. Ask some of those coaching questions, show them that they have been heard, clarify, but don't get sucked in. But do offer compassion. It must be really hard when you're not enjoying your work. And you're not saying this in a passive aggressive way. You're saying it in a really empathetic way. You then, though, need to decide, do they have legitimate reasons for the negativity? Now, there are some people that even when things are going well, they're very negative and there's always a problem, there's always a drama. However, there are some times in an organisation where there are real challenges. There are a lot of things going on. Someone's negative. It's still not great. It's still not okay for you. But there are reasons behind it. And I suppose if that's the case, that's where that empathy hat really comes into play, and where that coaching role of trying to help them come up with solutions, not to solve it for them, but to ask some questions to hopefully lead them to an answer. However, if you are dealing with someone who is very negative all the time and likes to suck people in to it, to feed that negativity and suck people into the drama, you giving them a sympathetic ear, not an empathetic one, but a sympathetic one, will exacerbate the problem. They want someone to, bitch and moan about and create that little dark circle of everything's wrong with this organisation and I hate it and it can all go to hell. So you don't want to give them that, because that will just be a disaster. So in that case, what you have to really decide on yourself is some personal boundaries. Now, if you sit next to this person, that can be a challenge. Some people I know use things like noise cancelling headphones. That's obviously a bit passive aggressive if it doesn't also go with the conversation. But you do have to protect yourself, because you don't want to get sucked into doing this as well. So first things first, remind yourself that you are in charge of your mindset. So I know that this person is good on the mindset stuff. They've been working on this quite a bit. But it is going back to that and remembering you're actually the creator of your life. You get to choose how you respond to this person's negativity. And it might not just be, I choose to be positive, but it might be, I choose how I respond. Am I going to remove myself? Am I going to have a conversation? But what am I going to do? Because there will be people like this in life. I would suggest, if they are very negative all the time, that you do have a conversation with them. And it doesn't have to be a sit down, very serious, formal conversation, but it might be when they're talking about, the challenges they're facing and it's all doom and gloom, that you say to them, you know what, empathy, I know there's challenges at the moment, and I get that it's frustrating for you. I get frustrated too. However, I choose to focus on the positive aspects, or I choose to control what I can control, because I can't control those other things. So I choose to focus on that. And I know you're frustrated, but actually when you get stuck in that negativity all of the time, it's actually having an impact on me and my well-being at work. So I get that it's frustrating, but, you know, if you can, you're absolutely, if you've got a concern, you're free to, you know, we can have a conversation, but I don't want to get pulled into that negative spiral, because it's not good for me, and it's not how I choose to show up at work, I would call it. I think this person mentioned to me that the negative person may be very unaware of this, and that's why that empathy part at the start is so important, because they might not be aware of it. They might be in that really bad place and not coping, or not like their job anymore, and actually this negativity is because they know they need to change jobs or get out, but they haven't got the courage to do it, or haven't found that clarity. But you do have to protect yourself, and I would recommend having that direct conversation, letting them know that it's having an impact on you. Encourage them. If there are problems with their boss, or they're bitching about the same person all the time, encourage them to have a direct conversation with them. You know, okay, so if you've got these concerns, how about having a conversation, and you be that person that encourages. And the last thing, though, is sometimes you do have to raise it with people above you. Sometimes you do have to raise it with a manager to make them aware of it. I would only ever do that personally if I'd addressed it with the person directly first. That's me. I am a firm believer in no triangles. So if I am going to raise something with the manager, I would have a conversation with them first. But like I said, doesn't have to be a really formalized, serious one. And your conversation with your manager might be from, again, that empathetic, compassionate viewpoint, where you say, look, you know, Tom, I'm just pulling a name out of my hat, Tom really doesn't seem himself at the moment. If it is different behavior for him, he's very negative all the time. It is having an impact on me. So I have had a conversation with him, but I wanted to raise it with you as the manager, because I'm not sure if there's some, you know, some issues or challenges that he's facing that I'm not aware of, that he maybe needs support on. So then you've covered your bases. Now, after you've done that, after you've raised it with them, raised it with your manager, you've sort of done the direct thing, then it is those things like, if you need those noise cancelling headphones, if whatever it is, do that. But make those boundaries, those personal boundaries, clear, that you've said, you know what, happy to have a conversation, but I'm not prepared to get sucked in, you know, to these conversations, because I do like to focus on the positive. And if I do have a problem, and sometimes I do, I'm really working hard myself on having direct conversations. It's that lead by example stuff, lead by example, and hopefully other people will follow. Okay, folks, that is it from me tonight, unless anyone else has a question. Oh, one thing I'd love you to check out my new website, which some of you have seen when you've ordered books, which is just leahmetha.com.au, but the full website went live today. So workshops are on there, the keynote speeches I offer as well, a new homepage, a show reel, it's all there. So jump on, have a look, give me feedback, let me know what you think. And remember, soft is the new hard. These soft skills are hard work. So keep working on them. Be the active bystander. If you've jumped in late, please go back and watch the start of this video, because being an active bystander is so, so very important. Have a great night, everyone, and I'll catch you next week.